Okay, let's dive in. I have to start with something that's been kind of bugging me. You know those weird little things that happen in an office when you're there late?
Like the building settling or...
Or like the lights flicker
Yeah.
and you know nobody else is on the floor?
Yeah.
Or you swear you left your mug right here, and then it turns up somewhere totally different.
Oh, yeah. Those moments that make you do a double take. The
Yeah,
definite feeling of something not quite adding up.
exactly. It feels
Yeah.
off. Hard to explain logically. And, well, it made me think about something that is haunting a lot of organizations right now. These real persistent problems in hybrid work setups.
The ghosts of hybrid work.
Yeah, problems that feel just as hard to pin down sometimes, but they're definitely messing with productivity, morale, connection.
That's a really good metaphor, actually, because you're right. A lot of companies didn't strategically design their hybrid models. They kind of scrambled into them, didn't they? Out of necessity a few years back.
It was a reaction.
Totally a reaction, not a deliberate plan. And when you build something that fast, without really thinking through all the angles, you inevitably get these unintended side effects, these lingering issues that just sort of hang around, causing trouble.
And it's not like hybrid work is just a phase, right? It's really becoming standard practice for a massive part of the workforce. The sources we looked at for this deep dive, research papers, articles, all that, they point out that something like 28% of U.S. employees are hybrid now.
And get this, 90% of companies are planning to either keep or even increase their remote options. So yeah, these ghosts, these problems, they aren't just going to vanish on their own.
Exactly. So that's our mission today, right? To really go through these sources, figure out what these hybrid work ghosts actually are, why they showed up, and crucially, what practical things can be done to, well, banish them and make hybrid actually work well for everybody.
Precisely. Let's pull back the curtain and start figuring out what's causing the pain. Why are these ghosts even appearing?
Okay, so where do we start? Why did they show up?
Well, the sources are pretty consistent on this, that initial shift, often reactive, like we said, not strategic. And the core issues usually come from this mismatch.
A mismatch between...
Between employees really embracing the flexibility, the autonomy they discovered, and organizations not fully adapting their basic structures. Their traditional ways of doing things haven't caught up to support this new reality.
So it's way deeper than just where you log in from. It's about the whole system, how work gets managed, how people experience it.
Absolutely. If companies just tried to, paste the old office routines onto a hybrid model without fundamentally rethinking management styles, team dynamics, how information flows, company culture, these friction points, these ghosts, were basically inevitable.
And maybe not enough support from the top, even with the flexibility.
That plays a role too, definitely. Insufficient employer support is mentioned as a factor.
Okay, let's name the first ghost then, the one a lot of people feel quite strongly. The specter of isolation and alienation.
Yeah, this one comes up a lot in the sources. It's a very real feeling. People report feeling disconnected, kind of isolated from colleagues, maybe even estranged from the company culture itself.
I've heard people talk about that.
Right. SAP's research, for instance, specifically flagged decreased employee isolation and engagement as a key challenge for leaders in hybrid setups. And Meta also pointed out that remote folks miss out on those spontaneous office interactions, the cultural osmosis, which leads straight to that feeling of being out of the loop.
Oh, I can totally see how that would be extra tough for someone new, like joining a team and trying to figure things out without that constant face-to-face contact.
Definitely. One source explicitly mentions new hires in hybrid potentially feeling a stronger sense of alienation. And it's not just a vague feeling, Over time, that lack of easy, spontaneous connection really does weaken team cohesion. It can dilute the company culture in noticeable ways.
So the root cause isn't just the physical distance then. There's more to it.
There really is. The sources dig into this deeper systemic thing they call presence disparity.
Presence disparity.
Yeah. It's not usually intentional, but people who are physically in the office are often just perceived as being more present, more engaged, maybe even more important just because they're more visible. Old management habits and communication styles can make this worse.
Like an in-group and an out-group.
Exactly. Harvard Business Review used that exact terminology. Hybrid can accidentally create an in-group of the office folks and an out-group of the remote ones.
So it's not just missing the coffee chats, it's potentially missing out on important stuff, like crucial information or opportunities.
That's the core of it. If the key decisions, the important updates, the informal networking, if that stuff mostly happens among the people physically there, then remote staff inevitably become less visible, less plugged into the main current of the organization.
And the real impact is so what is pretty big then.
It's huge. It's feeling marginalized, cut off from core activities, vital information, and those informal networks that are often critical for actually moving ahead in your career and just feeling like you belong. And fixing this, the source's stress, isn't just about scheduling a few virtual happy hours. It needs a systemic change, intentionally balancing presence, making sure remote employees have genuinely equal chances to contribute, be heard, and feel connected.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving on to ghost number 2, one that causes daily headaches. The breakdown of communication. This often feels like guesswork, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Communication by guessing that nails it, and it lines up perfectly with what the sources describe. Hybrid work definitely throws up significant communication hurdles.
Yeah, I bet.
You see mentions of communication barriers and potential communication gaps all over the place. Digital tools are obviously essential, but they just lack that richness, the nonverbal cues we rely on face-to-face. One source even calls digital messages ripe for misinterpretation.
Huh? I think we've all been there. That email chain or Slack thread that just goes sideways and could have been sorted in like 2 minutes in person.
Precisely. And this breakdown shows up in different ways. Information silos are a big one. Stuff shared casually in the office just never makes it to remote colleagues. Then there are the misinterpreted messages or just plain confusion because there are too many communication tools and nobody's clear on which one to use for what.
And this isn't just a hypothetical problem, right? Sources mention even places like Hong Kong are grappling with this.
Yeah, they specifically note Hong Kong employers are trying to tackle these communication gaps. And interestingly, surveys mentioned in the sources found that a huge chunk of employees in Hong Kong, 72%, feel their current office layouts aren't actually great for collaboration even when they are physically there.
Wow, 72%.
Yeah, and across the Asia-Pacific region, it jumps to 88%. So even the physical space designed for more action might be falling short, which just adds another layer to the communication challenge.
So, is the root cause simply that digital communication is just worse?
The sources argue it's less about the tools themselves being inherently flawed and more about the lack of deliberate strategy, a lack of clear norms for how to communicate in a hybrid setting.
So it's the lack of planning again.
Exactly. It takes conscious effort to define how teams should communicate effectively when they're distributed. Without clear protocols, clear guidance on using different channels for different things, people are just left to guess. It's not that hybrid teams can't communicate well digitally. It's often that organizations haven't clearly shown them how they should.
And the result of all that guesswork.
Inefficiency, delays, mistakes, and just a lot of frustration. The sources agree. The fix isn't just buying more software. It's investing the time to create, communicate, and reinforce clear protocols. Defining what information goes where, choosing the right tool for the job, and this is important actually, training people in the skills needed for effective hybrid communication.
Right. Okay, our third ghost casts a really long shadow. Shadow of inequality, especially around promotions. Proximity bias, right.
That's the one. A really serious concern highlighted across the board. And it links directly back to that presence disparity we talked about. People working remotely or just spending less time physically in the office often face unequal opportunities for career growth.
So it's that subconscious thing where managers just favor the people they see around more often.
That's the heart of it. Sources are explicit. Proximity bias can lead managers, maybe without even realizing it, to see the employees they interact with face-to-face more often as being more dedicated, maybe better performers, even if the objective results don't back that up. One view put it simply, physically closer employees are often seen as better and more favored.
And the consequences for those not physically present sound pretty damaging.
They really are. Remote workers might get fewer high-visibility projects, miss out on those informal mentoring moments, and ultimately have fewer shots at promotion, even if they're hitting all their targets.
So lower visibility equals fewer promotions.
Directly, according to the sources. And naturally, that unfairness tanks morale, lowers job satisfaction, and makes remote employees more likely to leave. Plus, the sources point out this can seriously undermine diversity and inclusion efforts, since remote work is often essential or preferred for certain groups.
And this is tied into how managers perceive things too.
Yes. Managers might think, perhaps subconsciously, that the employees they see are more focused, so they give them more support or better assignments. Meanwhile, Remote staff can feel completely overlooked for training, development, and promotion opportunities. The clear recommendation from the sources is that managers must actively work to ensure equal opportunities and visibility for everyone, regardless of location.
So what's driving this bias? What's the root cause?
It seems to be a mix of that lower visibility for remote folks combined with old school performance metrics. Metrics that implicitly, or sometimes explicitly, valued time spent in the office.
Those old ways of measuring things.
Right. Exactly. Sources argue those metrics are just plain outdated for hybrid work. If your performance reviews aren't strictly based on objective outcomes, which is a huge recommendation, then just being physically seen can subtly but significantly sway how a manager perceives someone's contribution. It becomes a vicious cycle, really.
How so?
Low visibility leads to fewer opportunities, which, especially if you're using those old metrics, makes remote staff seem less productive or less contributing, which then leads to unfair promotion decisions.
So it's less about managers being intentionally unfair and more about a broken system.
That's exactly how the sources frame it. Less about conscious bias, more about outdated systems and habits. Fixing it requires a two-pronged attack. Raising awareness and training managers, yes, but also fundamentally changing performance evaluation to be strictly outcome-based and location-agnostic. Fairness has to be baked into the system itself.
Okay, diagnosing these ghosts, isolation, communication chaos, inequality really paints a picture of the challenges. You said hybrid work can be saved. So let's shift gears. How do we actually banish these problems?
Right. The good news, definitely, is that the sources show these ghosts can be driven out. It's not impossible, but it takes deliberate, strategic action, building solutions around core pillars: people, process, and technology, being intentional, not just reacting.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So pillar one, rebuilding trust and connection. Seems like the absolute foundation.
It really is the bedrock. Trust is everything for hybrid success. And the sources hammer home the critical role managers play in building and maintaining that trust within their teams.
How do leaders actually do that, though? Foster trust when people aren't always in the same room.
A big part is shifting their leadership style, moving away from that old command and control model towards being more of a coach, empowering the team, really prioritizing serving their needs.
Servant leadership.
Kind of, yeah. And transparency is massive. Being open and honest in communications and decisions, and fundamentally just doing what you say you're going to do. Following through consistently builds that credibility and trust over time.
Okay, and what about fostering connection between team members? That casual office vibe is tough to replicate online.
It is, and the sources are clear. It won't just happen spontaneously in a hybrid setup. It needs conscious effort. Encouraging regular check-ins, finding ways for people to connect informally, maybe scheduled virtual coffee breaks, things like that.
And dedicated team building stuff.
Definitely. Investing in actual team-building activities, both virtual ones and also making the most of times when people can gather physically.
Any specific ideas mentioned?
Yeah, for virtual, things like quick icebreakers at the start of meetings, online games like Two Truths and a Lie, or virtual Pictionary, even collaborative activities like creating a story together came up. For in-person or hybrid gatherings, think outdoor activities, maybe collaboratively designing a team logo, or even just having walk-and-talk meetings instead of sitting in a conference room.
Walk and talks, I like that.
Sources also pointed out something interesting. Having really clear team goals and well-defined roles actually boosts cohesion, too. It makes the team feel more connected and effective when everyone knows what they're aiming for and what their part is.
Right, structure helps.
And structure brings us back to communication, a key part of this pillar. Designing clear communication protocols. The sources call this an essential guideline, a core skill for making hybrid work.
So what does that look like practically?
It means setting clear expectations. Things like having regular team meetings, maybe quick daily stand-ups or weekly check-ins focused on progress, any roadblocks, and goals. Using the various tools we have, Slack, Teams, Zoom, whatever. But critically, assigning a clear, agreed-upon purpose for each one.
So no more wondering whether to email, Slack, or call.
Hopefully less of it. It's about avoiding that confusion. It also means respecting boundaries, people's offline time, different schedules, and really importantly, adopting a remote-first mindset.
Remote first, meaning?
Meaning, even if just one person is remote for a meeting or discussion, the whole team operates as if everyone were remote. Key information gets documented, shared accessibly, ensuring nobody misses out just because of their location. And here's a deeper insight from the sources on trust. Truly lasting trust in hybrid comes from mutual transparency. It's not just leaders being open, it's team members being open too about their work, their availability, any challenges they're facing.
So everyone shares more.
Exactly. Things like sharing calendars, communicating how and when you prefer to be contacted, setting clear work hours practices suggested by sources like Asana. This mutual openness cuts down drastically on the guesswork for everyone. Managers can trust work is getting done without hovering, and employees clearly understand expectations and decisions. It really requires a culture where transparency is the norm, supported by the right tools, of course.
That mutual transparency sounds like a direct hit against that guesswork ghost. Okay, moving to pillar 2. Optimizing processes and leveraging technology.
Yeah, this one's critical. If your company's internal ways of working were built assuming everyone's in the same building at the same time, they absolutely need a rethink for hybrid. Sources flat out state that process optimization is foundational. Clunky, slow, or location-tied processes. They're productivity killers in a hybrid world.
So how do you actually optimize processes for hybrid? Where do you start?
First step is usually analyzing the current workflows. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are things inefficient? Then, crucially, leverage digital tools and automation. The sources talk about adopting automated processes wherever you can.
Like Rico did.
Exactly. Rico's success stories specifically mention digital workflows and automation as key pillars. Another big strategy is designing for asynchronous collaboration.
Asynchronous, meaning not everyone has to be online at the same time.
Precisely. Setting up processes so work can move forward even if team members are working different hours or in different time zones. It fits flexible schedules better and helps fight that endless meeting fatigue. One source even laid out 5 steps to build a culture of asynchronous collaboration. And here's a key insight. While tech and culture get a lot of attention, process optimization is often the forgotten hero. It's absolutely vital for hybrid success, but frequently overlooked. Think about it. If your processes are rigid, manual, maybe still require a physical signature on something.
Yeah, even the best tech won't help.
Exactly. Even if you have great tech and high trust, those processes will trip you up. Remote employees will always be disadvantaged. Effective hybrid work requires redesigning how work actually flows, so it's location agnostic. It's not just about handing out laptops, it's rethinking the work itself. The sources stress that organizations need to invest real time in planning, analyzing, and redesigning key processes with a hybrid-first lens, simplifying, automating, enabling contributions from anywhere, anytime.
That's a really important distinction. Fix the underlying process, then apply the tech. Which brings us neatly to the tech toolkit itself. What are the must-haves mentioned?
Well, digital collaboration tools are obviously non-negotiable. Hybrid work just relies on platforms like Slack, Teams, Zoom for basic communication and teamwork. The sources tend to group them into categories. Communication tools like Slack, Teams, video conferencing Zoom, Google Meet, project management platforms Asana, Trello, Jira for keeping track of who's doing what, collaboration whiteboards like Miro for visual brainstorming, and remote access tools like Splashtop are also mentioned.
But just having the tools isn't enough, right? It's easy to end up with a confusing pile of software.
Totally. You absolutely need to choose tools that genuinely fit your team's actual needs, not just chase the latest shiny object. And crucially, provide proper training so everyone knows how to use them effectively and consistently. Integration helps too. The sources mention how platforms like Miro connect with others to make workflows smoother. There's even a useful comparison table in the sources looking at key tools and their specific hybrid uses, which could help organizations choose wisely.
Okay, pillar 3, designing meaningful physical interactions. Makes sense. If people are going to make the effort to come into an office, there needs to be a good reason beyond just, showing their face.
Precisely. The sources are really strong on this. Office days should not just be about doing the same solo computer work you could do anywhere else. They need a clear purpose. They should focus on activities that genuinely benefit from being face-to-face. The goal is making office time more meaningful, really defining when being physically present is more beneficial.
What, for specific types of work?
Exactly. What kind of activities? Well, high on the list is collaborative brainstorming and complex problem solving. Often, the energy and back and forth in a room together really helps. Team building, strengthening social bonds, obviously crucial for in-person time. Kickoff meetings for big, complex projects, strategic planning sessions, those benefit from physical presence too. And critically, onboarding new team members and providing focused mentorship often works best face-to-face.
Are there different models for how companies schedule this in office time?
Yeah, lots of variations. Sources talk about fixed hybrid schedules. Maybe everyone comes in Tuesday and Thursday. rotating models, or remote-first approaches where people are mostly remote but gather intentionally, maybe quarterly, for specific team events or planning sprints. Examples mentioned include split-week schedules, periodic gatherings, fixed days. The best fit really depends on the team's work and needs. And here's that deeper insight, the pull factor. The most successful hybrid setups, according to the sources, make the office time so valuable, so engaging, that employees actually want to come in for those specific activities. They feel pulled towards the office rather than feeling pushed back without a clear reason.
Creating an office people want to go to.
Exactly. Making those office days genuinely meaningful. Modern offices themselves are changing, becoming flexible hubs designed for collaboration, for connection, not just rows of desks. Because if going to the office just means sitting alone on video calls, well, what's the point? But if it's designed for high-value collaboration, deep connection, unique shared experiences, it creates that pull. It shifts motivation from just complying to actively participating. Organizations, the sources suggest, should curate these experiences, communicate the why behind any required office time, and ideally, let teams have a say in what rhythm works best for them.
It makes total sense. Give people a compelling reason. Okay, finally, Pillar 4, ensuring fairness in performance and growth. This loops back to that proximity bias ghost, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the first crucial step here is for leaders and managers to just acknowledge it exists, to recognize that proximity bias is real and can unconsciously skew evaluations. Sources even cite figures like 62% of HR heads and 70% of leaders agree it's a potential issue favoring in-office staff.
So acknowledging it is step one. How do you actively fight it?
Training is key. Educating managers about what proximity bias looks like and giving them concrete strategies to mitigate it. Another critical tactic: mandating frequent, structured one-on-one meetings with every single team member, whether they're remote or in office. Ensuring everyone gets that equal face time, equal opportunity for discussion and support. Scheduling those regular one-on-ones is vital.
And getting away from judging people based on whether you can physically see them working.
Absolutely fundamental. Performance evaluation must shift to being based on objective, concrete outcomes, results, actual contributions, not physical location or hours spent visibly tapping away. The buzzword is outcome-based performance metrics.
So using things like OKRs or KPIs.
Exactly. Sources advocate for transparent and objective performance metrics, using clear, predefined standards like OKRs, objectives and key results, or KPIs, key performance indicators, and applying them consistently to everyone no matter where they work. Setting SMART goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound is also part of this.
And what about feedback? Not just waiting for the annual review.
Oh, definitely not. Continuous feedback is crucial. Providing regular, ongoing performance feedback throughout the year, both formal and informal. Sources show that supervisors who do this see much higher employee engagement and can nip potential issues in the bud.
And making sure the whole process feels fair and consistent to everyone involved.
Hugely important for buy-in and trust. Clearly communicate expectations and how performance will be evaluated to all employees. People need to understand the why behind their work and what success looks like. And ensuring remote and in-office staff have genuinely equal access to development opportunities, challenging projects, and visibility to leadership. The sources literally say provide equal opportunities for all. Using things like calibration meetings where managers discuss ratings together helps ensure consistency across different teams and locations. And the deeper point here is that fair evaluation in hybrid isn't just about asking managers to try harder not to be biased come review time. It's about designing a system throughout the entire performance cycle that is inherently fair because it's built on objective metrics, regular feedback, and transparent processes.
System design over individual effort again.
Right. A system based on those predefined, transparent, outcome-based goals, supported by documented progress and ongoing dialogue, provides a much more objective foundation. It makes fairness less dependent on individual managers overcoming unconscious bias because it's baked into how things are done from the start.
That really highlights the power of getting the system right. Okay, so we've diagnosed the ghosts, we've laid out the pillars for banishing them. What about the real world? What can we learn from organizations that have actually tried to make hybrid work?
Yeah, learning from others, both successes and failures, is super valuable. The sources do offer some glimpses.
Any examples of companies getting it right? Maybe some from Hong Kong you mentioned earlier.
Yes, a few examples came up. In Hong Kong, HKTV was mentioned for its adaptive approach, allowing 2 remote days for office staff. Lowell Move was noted for balancing WFH flexibility with emphasizing the value of office interaction. Klook's workcation policy was highlighted too, showing trust and focusing on employee well-being. On a broader scale, RICO's structured approach, focusing on those four pillars, workspace, digital workflows, IT infrastructure, and security, offers a good template for comprehensive planning.
What seems to be the common thread among these successes?
A few things stand out. Flexibility, definitely, but paired with clear expectations and rules. Serious investment in the right technology and making sure the infrastructure is reliable. Committed leadership that actively champions the hybrid model and cares about employee well-being. A clear shift to outcome-focused performance evaluation, ditching presenteeism, and very deliberate efforts to maintain the company culture and keep teams connected.
Okay, and on the flip side, what are the common traps? Where does hybrid go wrong?
Oh, there are plenty of ways it can derail if you're not careful. A big one is just not having a clear plan or strategy from the get-go. Ignoring employee feedback and refusing to adapt the model is another recipe for disaster hybrid needs to evolve.
Bad tech.
Definitely. Poor tech support or clunky implementation just causes constant frustration. Failing to acknowledge and actively address proximity bias, that guarantees inequality and resentment. Communication gaps and information silos will persist if you don't actively manage them. Neglecting the culture, letting trust erode that leads straight to disengagement.
I'm trying a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, that rarely works for diverse teams with different needs. Also, managers sticking to old, office-centric command and control styles really struggle in a hybrid environment. The sources even provide a handy table contrasting success factors and common traps across areas like leadership, comms, tech, performance, culture, process, and the office experience itself like a checklist for organizations. One interesting specific trap mentioned was external coordination issues. A company tried a 4-day week but couldn't make it work because key partners still operated 5 days, showing how external factors can limit internal choices.
That external dependency is a really practical point. Okay, let's pull it all together. Going back to that core question that framed this whole deep dive, can our hybrid work actually be saved?
Based on everything we've seen in these sources, the answer is a definite, resounding yes. Those ghosts we talked about, the communication snags, the isolation, the unfairness, there are real challenges, absolutely. But they are solvable problems. The path forward involves that intentional design we've been discussing, building on those pillars. Trust and connection, optimizing process and tech, making physical interaction meaningful, and ensuring fairness.
And it sounds like it's not just a one-and-done fix. It's more like an ongoing process.
Oh, absolutely. Getting hybrid right isn't a project with an end date. It's a continuous journey. It requires ongoing commitment from leadership, building in regular ways to get feedback from employees, and being willing to tweak and adapt strategies based on what's actually working and what isn't.
And it's not just on leaders to make it happen.
Correct. The sources really emphasize this. Leaders set the vision and provide resources, yes, but creating a truly successful, thriving hybrid environment, that's a shared responsibility. It means real effort and buy-in from HR, from managers, and honestly, from every single employee too.
So the answer to, can our hybrid work be saved, is yes, if organizations understand the root causes and intentionally apply these kinds of strategies.
They absolutely can transform hybrid work. Turn it from something that feels haunted and maybe a bit broken into a genuine source of strength, something that boosts both employee engagement and overall company performance.
That's really quite encouraging. Maybe the final thought to leave with you, our listener, is this. A well-designed, well-executed, genuinely cared-for hybrid model might be more than just a compromise we have to live with. The sources suggest it could actually be a better way of working overall, better for the organization's success, and better for the well-being of its people.
A powerful possibility.
So as you reflect on all this, maybe think about your own situation. What's one small, intentional change, something concrete that you or your team could try this week? Just one small step to start addressing one of these ghosts in your own hybrid workplace. Because that's how the journey starts, right? With one step.